Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Stephanie Marsh Ballard on the podcast. She's a Team Iron Bodies and Minds. She's a member of Team Iron Bodies and Minds, I should say. She's a nationally qualified figure competitor. She's coming to us all the way from Sacramento, California, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to make that healthy and fit lifestyle change?
So I was a dancer growing up. I did ballet, tap, jazz. I wasn't very good at sports at all. I was scared of the ball. I was one of those kids that was scared of the ball, but I was really into dancing. And I went to school for theater. I was a theater major in college, but I wasn't very active. So I was dancing and you're doing the college drinking kind of thing. And I was slowly gaining a lot of weight. And by the time I got out of college, I didn't have dance. I didn't have my theater for a while. So I had to learn how to work out in the gym. So with that, I lost my 25 pounds that I gained in college. I stopped drinking as much. I had a bad drinking episode in college, like most people. I mean, you got to have a little bit of fun. But so with getting better in fitness and losing the weight and starting to feel a lot of that mental clarity, a lot of that stress go away, someone told me about competing, and I had no idea what it was. And to be honest, I probably wasn't ready the first time I competed. The first time I competed was in 2014. But I just kind of saw it as the next step in my fitness journey. So I competed in 2014, and I did 3 shows, and then I took a very, very long off season. So I recently, this last year, decided to get back into it, and I got a new coach she's just amazing. So she's part of Team Iron Bodies and Minds, and I met her through the first time we competed. So we were both on the same team before. And it was a very cookie cutter kind of team. So when I decided I wanted to do it again, she reached out to me because she had just gotten her pro card with her coach. So she's like, come over here. I'll check out your posing. We'll go over diet and nutrition. And then it just took off, and it was life changing. And it was probably one of the best decisions I could have done.
Yeah, I mean, I love having guests come on and share their stories because everyone just has their own individual story. But I love to ask all of the guests that we have on the show, because if you were to go and walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into that certain shape that they're in. I mean, it takes a lot of different diets, different nutritions. I mean, how many reps they do, what exercise they do. So many things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a difficulty for you at first getting started in the gym, sort of finding out what worked best for your body specifically? Because I always like to say, if you were to go up to someone and say like, hey, what did you do for this certain body part? Like, what works best for you? What worked best for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you.
The funny thing is I put on muscle really fast, and I think it was from dancing. So I've always had these naturally strong legs and normal arms, but as soon as I started lifting weights, my shoulders grew. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what I think brings my physique together, and why I do figure over any other categories, because my shoulders blew up. But the funny thing about my body is I actually have no trouble putting on muscle and size. Mm-hmm. I start to struggle when it's time to cut. So when we go into that cutting phase, that's when we have to figure out exactly what rep ranges, what weights will work, because I can honestly, I like to say that, well, my friends like to say that I can touch weight and like I can build muscle, because that's easy. But for my body type does not want to be small. So the cutting phase is the challenge, and that's where I'm grateful for my coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely lucky with that, because a big problem area for a lot of our, especially women that we have on his shoulders, where it takes them very, very a hard, long time to grow them. And that is, like you said, that is one of the big reasons why a lot of people either choose bikini or figure, is based on, their shoulders, because it is, one of the things that you have to show off a lot when you compete. But I always love to ask, because everyone has different genetics. What was one body part that, I mean, other than your legs, that really, really took off when you got started lifting in the gym? And what was one body part that really lagged behind, that you really had to put into overdrive training wise in order to get it to catch up?
So my body part that is easy to train is my arms. Mm-hmm. I have really big biceps, and I was actually told by my coach this off season that we're not going to be training my arms too often, because they're going to start overpowering my shoulders. I think the hardest part to train is my rear delt. That is another focus of the V taper with figures. You need to have nice round shoulders, and my rear delts were kind of lagging. And we figured out that was due to a lot of like this hunched over
Mhm.
desk job stuff I was doing at first. So once we started opening up and doing more posture and more corrective exercises, we were able to target my rear delts better, and they're starting to grow.
Okay, you can't say you have really big biceps and not show off the guns. Let's see the guns real quick. Yep. Yep, everyone. Yep. Yep, she's true. Yep, 100%. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's totally, yeah. So for me, I mean, my back is really, really just naturally just really built where I always say, I could train, once every 6 months and it would still look really, really great. But I mean, I'm 6'3", so my legs are just the biggest problem. I mean, it's the opposite for you. I mean, because you had that dancer background, but for me, I mean, I always had that pitcher's body where you're supposed to be really long and lengthy and nothing too built. So yeah, leg day is my absolute least favorite. It is, but yeah, you have to get it done. But how long did it take you training wise before you finally decide like, hey, I could do a bodybuilding show? That seems like something I could do.
I it started after college. I started lifting weights in 2012, and I got really into dialing in my nutrition. I never had a problem with, oh, I'm craving junk food, oh, I want this. I was just all about seeing my body change and feeling good, and it just made me do more. So I decided, like, let's compete. I think I'm in the right mindset. I think I've been working hard enough to compete. And so we did 2014, we did 3 shows, and that was such a big learning experience because by the end of the shows, I was a mess. And that's why I took such a long off season. And I think it was a really great experience though, because I learned what it's like to have food issues and what it's like to have disordered eating and what it's like to not want to go to the gym all the time and seeing your body rebound from like your peak look. So I learned a lot in that time.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I love to ask, which I'll ask a little bit later, is how people deal with gaining that weight afterwards. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But I also, I mean, I love to just make the statement that just getting into the shape required to start a prep takes so much hard work and dedication that I mean, it's really just so hard for a lot of people just to get into that. But then going into a prep is notching things up to just a whole different extreme level. How did your body adjust to that, and how did you deal with that mentally, just realizing that it was hard enough just to get into the shape to be able to compete, but then to go into that prep phase just is a whole different beast.
It's very challenging. I find that there is a point in the middle of prep where you feel really good. You're like, I'm starting to look good. My mental clarity is good. My diet is on point. But then we have to go into what I call the danger zone. And for a woman, I think that's getting into the single digit body
Mhm.
fat. So for me, as soon as I push past 12% body fat, I start to feel things happening and I start to get more grumpy. I start to get more tired. I can't think as well. Working out is much harder. And you really have to rely on your vision to get you through to that stage. Because once you're on stage, everything's great.
Mhm.
But it's that danger zone that you have to really work towards and lean on your coaches, lean on your close friends, and know that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, we hear that all the time because people just don't realize what that does to the body because you kind of manipulate it into a look that I mean is never sustainable for anyone. I mean, even for the guys and for every, I mean, you are going to have to put on weight. But I also, I mean, I love to ask because if you were to poll the general public, you would get such a small singular percentage of people that would have the courage and determination to go up on stage in a bikini and pose in front of people. I mean, it's something that, like I said, takes a lot of courage, a lot of drive. Was that ever something that you really had to work on, just getting the nerves to be able to go up and do that, or was it like one of those things where, I mean, we have had guests just like you, where you have that background of performing in front of people, but then we also have guests who just say like it got to the point where I was just training so much and so hard that I just wanted to go up on stage and show it off. What was your process like with that?
As soon as I got on stage, I remember the first time I got on stage, I was so excited that I couldn't even hear my coach.
Mhm.
I was just kind of living in the moment and doing my own thing. And then my coach is like, Stephanie, brace your abs, brace your abs. I'm like, oh shoot. Like I had to kind of like focus again because I was really enjoying it. But I think the only time that I've ever been nervous on stage was when my second show I won my class.
Mhm.
And so then I had to go up against everyone else who won their class. And that was when I remember just shaking and I couldn't hold my poses very well because I didn't believe I'd ever get that far. So that was probably my most nerve-wracking time on stage. But other times I just kind of like live in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And people don't realize, I mean, I have my bands on here and I have, my competitors on here. The competitors, sometimes only get like 30 seconds to a minute to, go up on stage and do their routine, where I always say, like, to my bands, I mean, you guys get to go on stage for like 2 hours. So it is just completely different. And that just makes it even more impressive that, I mean, you're training your body that much for just those 30 seconds basically to go up and show it off. I mean, it just adds so much more, inspiration to me at least. But I mean, I also love to say, one of the big surprising things that I found out when I started this podcast is that for a lot of these competitors, the hardest thing for them is the posing. It's harder than the nutrition. It's harder than the working out for a great deal of them. What is posing being like for you? Because I always like to say, you can be a great driver. You can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser. You can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has that been like for you posing wise?
My first season posing was difficult. I didn't have great direction and I felt kind of awkward. But so this now that I'm with Team Iron Bodies and Minds, I had an amazing posing coach. Her name is Desiree, and she recently got her pro card. So while she was in prep for getting her pro card, she was coaching me, and it was just a completely different experience because I knew what poses I had to hit, but it was the transitions that make it more flowy. And so that's where like my dancer side could come out, and her body was different than mine. So she got to really teach me like what muscles would pop when I turned a certain way or slowed down a certain way, and how to really bring out my back. So it was hard. It was very hard because as competition season went on, posing became part of the workout. We'd work out really hard and then we spend 15 minutes posing afterwards. So my muscles are shaking and pumped and I have to like keep squeezing and keep flexing. But it's good conditioning for what you're supposed to do on stage.
And I always say for a lot of these competitors, I mean, they get just as good as a workout, just doing their posing as just a normal workout, because like you said, I mean, you're flexing everything constantly. And yeah, and the worst part for a lot of competitors that I've heard at least is that you have to make it look effortless. That is the worst thing
Yeah.
too, is that you have to, be flexing everything in your body, and you have to make it look like you're not just going like the entire time. Like you have to have that smile on, just make it look eloquent. One of the big things too that I also love talking about is the heels. A lot of people have trouble with those heels. Was that something that you had to work on, or had you always been familiar with heels and you always, it wasn't that hard of a thing for you?
I still think I'm a little awkward in heels since I work in a gym. I'm not wearing heels so often. I think that is the biggest challenge, is walking across the stage in your 5-inch heels, hoping you don't fall, hoping you don't like trip, get your foot like right in the right position so you start from the bottom up with posing. So you start activating all your leg muscles and your core and then your shoulders, and you breathe out. And so it's definitely part of the piece by piece of how to build your pose.
Yeah, I mean, I always love to tell a story from my second health and fitness guest. She was the tallest ever bikini competitor. She was 6'3", so even in those heels, she was like 6'9". So I even told her, I was like, "What was that like?" Because I mean, just being my height, I mean, I would never have the grace to go up and walk on really any stage. I mean, like I said, I'm just one of those lengthy guys that just so that would be just a disaster for me. But I mean, one of my favorite questions to ask, as everyone can see, unfortunately, I'm from the upper Midwest, so I don't get that much of a tan ever. Well, I should say I've never really been tan other than the farmer's tan, which, let's face it, isn't a real tan. But what is that experience like for you when you get to put that tan on? Because we have so many people that see, like you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that like for you?
It's pretty crazy. Me personally, one, it's cold. It's very cold, and you have to stand in front of a fan while you dry. And we were in a tent, so we had competitors all around, and it was really interesting, I think, for me watching everyone and seeing how different their physiques looked up close than on stage, because you do start seeing like weird muscles and weird striations, but on stage under the lights with the tan, you look really healthy, you look really fit. So that's when I learned that bodybuilding is definitely an illusion.
So one of the big things that, I mean, isn't really talked about as much, especially on Instagram, that I love to bring up on the podcast, is that a lot of people just don't realize when you guys are in that shape and you guys are at the shows, you've manipulated your body through all the dieting and through all the training into a look that is not sustainable. I mean, you're not going to be able to keep that look for longer than a day. We've heard so many stories of, people who just get depressed or anxious, just realizing that for the first time that, I am not going to be able to look this good forever. Was that a struggle for you starting out to just sort of realize all that hard work that you put into it? Really, I mean, you're not going to be able to keep that look. It's something that you're going to have to put on more weight. Was that a struggle at first? And how have you sort of changed? How has that changed as you've competed more and more? Has it gotten easier for you?
It has been a struggle, and I don't think it's ever been easy because I have not mastered how to reverse diet correctly. So, I did mention earlier my body likes to be bigger, my
Mhm.
body likes size. And so, if I don't reverse diet, I blow up very quickly. And I remember thinking the first time I competed that as my body got smaller and my clothes got smaller, I was like, oh my God, I'll never have to be, big again. Wrong. So, learning now, like just learning to be comfortable without a six pack, I think, because especially when you are competing, you see you have a six pack for a while. I know I did. And so just to see it go away was very hard. And I think you have to just start remembering why you love to work out and why it makes you feel good and why eating makes you feel good versus going for a specific look all the time.
Mhm. And I always, love to say, muscle, you gotta, if you want to gain muscle, you gotta put on weight, just like you gotta spend money to make money. I mean, you can't put on more muscle if you're already like super lean down. So that's why, I mean, I always love to tell, all the people that I run into, or like I have friends at parties that come up to me and say, that's one thing I really didn't realize. Like, yeah, if you run into a bodybuilder, you might not think at times that they compete. You might just think that they look like they're in really good shape and that they work out a lot. But yeah, that's definitely one of the topics that I absolutely love to bring up. And like I always tell a lot of people too, is like, if I was one of these guests, especially being up here in Minnesota, I would not want to be that lean even longer than an hour just because of the cold. You go out there and you're already cold enough just from, getting that tan on. I mean, it's like walk outside and it's -20. Yeah, that's not going to be a fun time at all. So, yeah, that's why, like I always said, I'm on my 10 to 15 pound weight gain that I always get every winter just to be able to survive so that I'm not. And then, around April, May, that's when I lose it. And then I gain it around again, every October, November. But yeah, so you just got to keep that, especially when you're up here. But now, what is your favorite exercise to do and least favorite exercise to do?
My favorite exercise to do is anything chest related.
Mhm.
I love bench press. I love flies. I just feel really powerful when I'm working out chest and shoulders.
Mhm.
And then my least favorite is probably squats.
Mhm.
And I want to change that. I recognize that because it's my least favorite, I should probably do it more because I do need to strengthen my hips and start liking leg day again. But definitely squats. I don't like squats.
Mhm. But now, what is your go-to post-show meal?
My go-to post-show meal is tacos. I love tacos.
Mhm.
Always
Any
tacos.
particular place that you enjoy the most?
So for Tahoe, that's in South Lake Tahoe. That's my favorite show to do is the Tahoe show, and they have this restaurant in the village called Latin Azul Kitchen,
Mhm.
and they have this taco platter, and there's like pork tacos, sweet potato tacos, chicken tacos, and margaritas. I have to have a margarita
Mhm.
because I don't drink, and that's the one time I get a margarita.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I mean, for me, I would probably just get like a Five Guys or something like that, and just go to town after a competition. But at what point in your journey did you decide that you wanted to, start working at a gym and start helping out others?
So my first job out of college was at Jenny Craig.
Oh,
Are you familiar with
yep.
Jenny Craig? Yeah,
Hmm.
the weight loss company.
Yep.
So I spent 4 years counseling people on their mental health with food
Hmm.
because I have my own history with the mental health and food and
Hmm.
I loved it, but the problem was now I wasn't moving because I was at a desk job,
Hmm.
and even though I was working out, I wasn't moving all day, so I
Hmm.
was starting to get really really sad, and I thought that going into personal training is something I've been pursuing for a long time. I've already competed, so I kind of know what I'm doing. So I started to study for my NASM, and I got hired at 24. So right now I'm a trainer at 24.
That's awesome. So I always love to ask, all the personal trainers that we have on the show, what is the number one excuse that you get all the time from people who just try to make excuses on how they can't get into shape or why they can't get into more shape?
I think it's consistency.
Mhm. I'm surprised because that is one of the. I mean, you're going to be close to our 100th health and fitness guest, and that is probably the third time that we haven't heard time, because time is 97 out of the 100 that everyone gets. So yeah, I love having the different answers. But yeah, consistency is a huge thing as well because like I said, or I mean, even just getting muscle and going to the gym is one of those hard things because I always like to compare it to kind of like what you were talking about, where you drank a lot in college, and believe me, I drank a lot in college too. I mean, I have so many stories, but if I were to say like an alcoholic, if you were to compare an alcoholic to someone who needs to lose weight, an alcoholic, if you go one day without drinking, you've already made like significant progress. Like you're already like super on your way. Whereas if you go to the gym one day and you're overweight, you look in the mirror, nothing's gonna have changed. you're going to be just the same person. So that's why I always say, especially with the younger generation where they want it now and they want it yesterday, basically, where they aren't able to realize that, it is such a timed process. So yeah, absolutely. With the consistency too. I mean, you got to show up, even the days that you don't want to go, you definitely have to show up. But the two questions that I love to ask most, all my health and fitness guests I have on. So for the first one of the things that I really discovered when I started, working out and getting a lot more muscle and getting bigger in college, one of the negative things though for me is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, every time my parents come home with groceries, I'm still at home with them for the next couple of months. I have to basically lift the car into the driveway. Has that been a similar experience with you where people just take one look at you and they just assume that you can do favors like that for them?
It has been sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, with packing Christmas
Mm-hmm.
away, it's like, okay, muscles, come like lift the tree box, come do all this stuff. And I know I have muscles, but that doesn't mean like I'm very strong. Like training for a physique is a lot different than training for powerlifting.
Yep.
But I mean, I still do it because I like to be strong. But yeah,
Well,
yeah, we
that's what
lift
I
a
say
lot.
too, because a lot of people look at these things, and I was like, if you want to really go to people that lift, I mean, like, if you want to see, like, really impressive, because I just had a power lifter on here, and she was 5'1", and she could bench 280 pounds was her most, and I was like, okay, yeah, you're embarrassing me because I can't even bench that much, and you're a foot and 2 inches shorter than me. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's a little different. But yeah, I mean, I always say, I got that all the time where, it'd be friends coming up and text me being like, hey, Ryan, I need help moving. And it just got to the point where I just realized, yeah, they do recognize, all the hard work that I do. So I accepted it. It's fine. But my favorite question to ask all of our guests is, when it comes to clothes for fit women, I mean, your clothing options can be limited. I always like to say, if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time where, I mean, they just don't really seem to work out. What are some ways that you sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited?
So, luckily for me, I work in a gym, so I can wear yoga pants all the time because I do have muscular legs. And the way fashion is, we just don't really fit into jeans unless they're stretchy jeans. So,
Hmm.
I do have stretchy jeans, yoga pants. I actually do like wearing dresses, but it is cold right now. So, it's not exactly dress season, but sweaters, big
She said it
hoodies.
was cold, everyone, and she said it was 65, okay? It's 65 degrees. I would go nude. I would do everything in the nude if it was 65 up here right now, okay? Are you kidding me? But yeah,
I'm
I totally
spoiled.
understand. Yeah, she is spoiled to a T. I mean, I mean, I'm going to start maybe sending her icicles or something like that in the mail. It's like, yeah, that's, but yes, okay,
I know it's like a
let the
sunny 65, and
keep
here I am
keep the
cold.
fragile let's call the fragile Californians because they don't know what cold is. But yeah, so yeah,
We don't.
65. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the clothing options is one thing that, I mean, I always love to talk about because it's like you said, the options are very, very limited, and especially with women, they don't really have they don't really have a lot of stuff that you can like make cutoffs of, where you can just, because if you're going to work out, I mean, yeah, that's a whole different thing. So everyone, I mean, if you have any ideas on that, definitely let me know, because I mean, I have 100 guests on that. I mean, would love to have, and for guys too, because I've had guys on too, where I mean, it's a little bit different, the problems, but I always like to tell the fun story. So when I went home for a friend's wedding, I was, I'd put on about 15 pounds of muscle my freshman year of college, and I went down to bend over to pick something up at the wedding, and I heard a and luckily it was the shirt inside the suit. Luckily it wasn't the suit, so I got away with that. But that's when I realized, hey, I need to upgrade my wardrobe significantly. So yeah, I mean, like I said, anyone has any ideas, let me know. But one of the questions that, I mean, I absolutely love to as well ask is, nutrition wise, how did your nutrition change from when you were, from what you were starting with before you got into the gym to now? What would you say is the most significant change you made when it comes nutrition wise?
Well, I think when I was first starting to learn about nutrition, it became, how can I get away with eating the things I love, but at a lower calorie? So, unfortunately, a lot of artificial sweeteners, a lot of zero calorie products kind of came into my diet. And I learned very quickly that that didn't work for me. And that's kind of what set me up for mental disaster with
Mhm.
food. So now, I recently took a food sensitivity test
Mhm.
and learned what kinds of foods just don't work with my system. And so, since taking those out, I've taken out eggs, I've taken out chicken, I've taken out nuts and coconut. Those are the big ones. And so, keto just
Mhm.
probably won't ever work for me because I can't do nuts
Yeah.
or coconuts or anything like that. So, after taking those out, my weight started going down, my stress levels started going down, my performance at the gym started going up. So, I think if you don't want to take a test, I'm just a nerd like that. You have to really think through trial and error. Um, really need to commit to, first,
Mhm.
I'm going to eat clean. I'm just going to eat foods that I prep myself, and I'm going to know all the ingredients in them. and start there. And then you can slowly start taking things away to see, I wonder if this is what's upsetting me, or I wonder if this is what's making me brain foggy.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, and that's what I always say. Like you kind of said, it's a little nerdy. I always like to compare it also to like being a mad scientist and just making all these concoctions and just finding out what works best for you. I mean, there's so much trial and error in everything. I mean, it's just like everything else in life where you try some things and see what happens. But now, I mean, the big elephant in the room. We've seen it all the time. When did you decide to dye your hair blue?
Oh my God, it's a good story. So I've had blue hair for a little over a year
Mm-hmm.
now, and I decided that as soon as I left Jenny Craig,
Hmm.
I didn't have to look like super professional
Yeah.
anymore. Like, I still like to look good, but it has been something I wanted to do since college. When
Hmm.
I was in college, I did a scene from Scott Pilgrim, and I got to play Ramona
Hmm.
Flowers, and we did my hair all blue, and everyone's like, "You look so good with blue hair." So it kind of just stuck for a while, and then once I got my position as a personal trainer at 24. They don't have any hair rules. So I was like, we're going blue. We're going blue. And now it's actually pretty cool because competing with blue hair, I was noticed. I think that kind of helps with my personality and the suit that complemented my hair and the judges' reaction. So they're going to remember me when I go to nationals.
Well, absolutely, yeah. It's all about making yourself stand out too. And I mean, what better way to do it than that? But I mean, one of the biggest myths and stereotypes that I love to bust on this show. I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years with Instagram, but there is still a significant amount of women that believe if they just touch one weight, they're just gonna Hulk out, become Dwayne the Rock Johnson. And like we were talking about earlier, I mean, sign me up for that. I mean, I would hire them that night to become my personal trainer for life, basically, because they have found the secret that a lot of people want. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, you hear that probably all the time as a personal trainer. What do you like to respond to that? And I mean, I do know that you said you put on muscle very, very quickly. So, I mean, you might have been like, oh my God, this is actually true. But how did you respond to that at first?
So yes, I think I put on muscle quickly, but I also don't put on muscle quickly enough because
Yeah.
I still don't look like the Hulk.
Hmm.
But I do hear that a lot. I hear the word tone all the
Hmm.
time, and I just want to shake people. It's not a real word. What does
Hmm.
toning your body look like? It's
Yep.
not real. So I have to, like, the biggest part of my job is educating people. Like, yes, we're gonna do resistance training. Yes, we're gonna eat healthier, and we might increase your calories a little more. But all that's gonna do is shape up your body. Women do not have enough testosterone in their body to end up looking like the Hulk. All
Hmm.
those bodybuilder women are not natural. So we got to remember that.
Shocker.
If you want to look like the Hulk,
Yeah.
you got to do what the Hulk does.
Hmm.
And I don't do that with my
Yeah.
clients. So it's actually really exciting once they start trusting the process and seeing their body changes, and they actually just start getting more shapely and smaller and tight. So then the word tone goes out the window because I'm like, that's not a real thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love to tell the story. When I was in college, getting bigger and stronger, one of my really good friends, would always say to me, like, Ryan, you're getting bigger and stronger. I want to go to the gym with you, but I'm just afraid I don't want to get too bulky. And then finally one night I told, I said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go out to clubs or when we go out to, get something to eat weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells in the gym. And you're not gaining any bit of muscle from lugging that thing around 24/7. And that sort of convinced her where she, I mean, and I was like, I told her, I was like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to get healthier. I mean, it's like, that's one thing that I don't understand, but it has been getting better, so I really, really enjoy that. Just because I mean, it's like I mean, it's a great way to burn calories, and it's a great way to have a nice metabolism too. But the most important thing, I think, especially for women, is the confidence boost that it gives you. Could you talk maybe a little bit about how that confidence boost affected you from going from maybe where you were in college to where you are now?
Yeah, I think it gave me a big boost of confidence because, like I said, as a dancer growing up, I've probably since 13, I've been somewhat of this size.
Hmm.
So this is a relatively big size for a 13-year-old girl. And as a dancer, having like tree trunks for
Hmm.
legs because that's my genetics. I have strong legs and not these like stick
Hmm.
figures legs that everyone else has. It was very strange. So as soon as I started lifting, I felt better. I started seeing more people with my body type, and I started seeing the progress that my body can make, and it gave me a lot of confidence. So absolutely, I think no matter what your body type is, when you can go into the gym and you can, suffer through the pain of lifting weights a little bit and your body gets used to it and you start wanting to do more of that because it feels good and it gives you energy, you definitely boost your confidence. You feel a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like I say, I mean, even for me personally, like I could go up and talk to people that I might have normally not had the confidence to go up and talk to, and I mean, it's just But the one negative thing for me is that, like, I mean, I used to be bigger than I am now just because when I'm working and doing this podcast, I still work out, like 3 to 4 times a week at best. I'll probably usually get like 3 days, but I used to, go at the bars, and then women all the time would come up and just like start feeling my arms without even asking. They just come up and start feeling like, oh my God. Like, and then they go like, oh my God, to whatever friend, like, Becky, come and check this out. So it got to a point where I was just like, oh yeah, it's mine. Have you found that to be just a similar experience where just people just sometimes,
Yes.
because it's so weird seeing a muscular women that they just all of a sudden they're just like, oh wow, that's kind of weird. Yeah.
Yes, I actually the other day I was at my supplement store,
Hmm.
and this woman who's doing a transformation
Yeah.
challenge, she just looks at me and she just grabs my arm. She's
Yep.
like, "Oh my God, your arms!" And I'm like, "Yeah, I get that a lot." And she's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. That's weird." I'm like, "No, it's cool. It's
Yeah.
cool."
I was gonna say, like, that's the one thing that a lot of people just don't realize when they get into this is that you basically become like a statue for a lot of people, or like you basically become
Yeah.
like a mold of art where people all of a sudden just assume that like they can look. So that's why, I mean, probably my biggest reason why I love to have my health and fitness guests come on, and the women especially, because the men it's a little bit different, but for the women, just because it's so rare, especially if you're in like a big city like LA, to maybe see a lot of muscular women, that a lot of sometimes people aren't able to look past the muscles when they're talking to you, or when they're getting to know you, just because it's something that they, this is human beings. I mean, we're inquisitive and intrinsic by nature, where I mean, if we see something that we don't see a lot, we're just kind of fascinated by it. So that's why I love to have guests come on and share their stories, because it makes people realize that, I mean, they're just normal people deep down, just like you and me. They might just work out a little bit more, they might have a little more muscle than you, but I mean, other than that, I mean, they're just normal people, and they just have great, amazing stories. So yeah, because I mean, we've heard so many stories of that all the time, where I mean, you just become like an art exhibit basically for people when you're just walking down the street, where people just like turn, they're like, oh wow, that's interesting. But yeah, it's one of those things where, I mean, it takes a lot of time to get used to, and for me especially. But luckily, I mean, like I said, in Minnesota, I'm covered up like this, half the year, because I'm not going to go outside sleeveless on days like today.
No.
But so yeah,
Right. Yeah.
that's the one lucky thing. But I mean, living in a place like California, where the weather is perfect year round, and it's known for having a lot of healthy and fit people. I mean, a lot of the industry is based in LA, the LA area, so it's in the same state. I mean, it's not super close, but I mean, there's always that notion of all these fit clubs in LA, all these Instagram people that live there. Do you find it hard to sort of maintain, or have the pressure to maintain that body image year round? Just because, like I said, if you're in warm weather, I mean, you could go to the beach one day, and I mean, you just have to. Some people will want to look good that day. Do you find it hard to still want to maintain that shape year round, just to be able to look good, because it's going to be nice weather constantly?
I think it's not as motivating for me with the
Hmm.
weather, because I'm not really an outdoorsy
Hmm.
person. But for me, just being in a theater background, um, to get the lead roles, you have to be in shape.
Hmm.
To get the roles I wanted, I had to be in shape. To be a personal trainer, my body is my business card.
Hmm.
So I do have to be in shape. And it is hard because sometimes there have been times where I just want to be like everyone else. I don't want people to talk to me about, oh, dieting is hard, or, oh, this is what I'm
Hmm.
doing. It's like, I'm going to, enjoy pizza with you guys. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, oh
Like,
yeah.
I'm not judging.
Yeah, and how do you survive the holidays, especially? I mean, with the Christmas and the New Year's and the Thanksgiving, I mean, they're all super close together. Do you sort of allow yourself to, enjoy yourself a little bit more, or even if you're on prep? I mean, we have some athletes say like, I might enjoy a little bit of the turkey and a little bit of the potatoes, but then I got to definitely work it off. But what is your process like during the holidays? Do you enjoy yourself to indulge, or let yourself to indulge, I should say?
So I would say absolutely, because I work hard all year round, and the last two times I've competed, I'm done competing at the end of
Hmm.
summer. So winter is like bulk season,
Hmm.
and winter is like I'm gonna eat all the food season. So yeah, I did go a little crazy this winter, because you don't. There's no. I personally think there's no reason to eat this way throughout the year,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of stuff to do. But the holidays is really meant to enjoy time with your family, enjoy time with your friends, and just let loose a little bit. So food is definitely part of that.
Oh yeah, I completely understand. And now we go to our audience favorite, my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire where we're going to ask Stephanie here about a dozen or so health and fitness questions, and getting to know her questions, I should say, that I ask all of our guests that we have come on the show, and we'll see how her answers stack up to everyone else's answers. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh my goodness. Actually, I don't know if I really have one,
Hmm.
because I've been so in tune with my breathing when
Hmm.
I'm lifting. So I focus better when I'm not listening to music. But for cardio or anything like that, I listen to podcasts. I
Yeah.
listen to fitness podcasts.
Yep, we get a lot of that too. So what is it specifically with your breathing that you like to do when lifting? Because for a lot of people, I mean, my brother specifically. So this is actually kind of strange. So my brother, him and his friends started a company. I mean, he was a professional baseball player. He never played in the majors or anything, but he was professionally played in the minor leagues. But him and one of his buddies from the minor leagues, they started this company where they teach professional sports teams. Like they even went to teach an NHL team, which I mean I can't mention the name because they haven't released it yet, but they went to an NHL training camp and they taught these players like proper breathing techniques so that they can get more out of their workouts. But how important is that for you, and what are the techniques that you like to try to use in order to maximize your lifts?
I think it's really just important to connect. Like I'm still learning how to breathe
Hmm.
properly for my lifts, but to actually focus on breathing in and out during the breathe out on like the push up or the
Hmm.
pull down, like being real connected with that. Cause I found that when I was just listening to music, I was getting lightheaded because I wasn't remembering to breathe
Hmm.
properly. So you're stronger when you breathe properly. So I'm still practicing that.
Absolutely. That's why you see, especially the power lifters, where I mean, they just have their breathing down to a point where they know when to suck in, they know when to go out. So yeah, it is definitely a strategy that takes a lot of time. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh man, that's a good one. Who would I work out with? The Rock. I would
Hmm.
work out with The Rock.
Yep. Yep. That is our most popular answer by
Probably because
far.
I'm obsessed with his new show, The Titans.
I
Titans.
see. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the promos for it, so I really want to see it. So I will definitely
It's good.
look into that. Yeah. Have you thought about auditioning for it?
I don't think I'm strong enough or tough enough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they normally get like the CrossFitters now because I had a CrossFitter on earlier this last week. Last weekend, I should say, and yeah, she was thinking about it. So yeah, I mean, me personally, I'd probably go with like an Arnold just because it's Arnold, and I'd love to hear him yell at me in like his thick Austrian accent would be really
That
really
would be
cool.
fun.
But now living in California, have you ran into any celebrities just walking down the street? Do you have any celebrity encounters?
No, because I live in Sacramento.
Yeah.
There's not many celebrities here.
I was gonna say, yeah. My brother, he moved to LA for 1 year just to see what it was like because a friend was already living down there. And the ran into Robert Downey Jr. and Owen Wilson and a couple other people just walking down the street. So he thought that was really cool. So yeah, I always like to ask all of our guests from the West Coast if they had any celebrity run-ins. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
I could train any celebrity. Oh my goodness. Probably, I'm stuck. Honestly, my favorite celebrity right now is Lady Gaga. So
Mhm.
if I could put her through a workout, that would be pretty cool.
Stars Born.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard so many great things about it. Just because I was one of those people where I was really mad when I heard that they were coming out with another one because I was like, they've already made four of them. They don't need to make another fifth one, a fifth.
I
But
know,
but it's
all the
gotten so many
repeats.
good reviews where I am going to see it when it comes out, where I can just watch it for free on like Netflix or whenever when it comes out. So I'll definitely watch it then. But yeah, I after all the people said that it was so great, I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. But after I watched all the other previous versions and I was like, okay, yeah, they shouldn't do it again. But then I realized, if it's good, it's good. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Vegetables. I
Any
always got to have vegetables.
any specific vegetable?
Yes, Brussels sprouts. Those are my favorite vegetables.
Oh my god. So okay, honestly, that is the first time that we've ever had Brussels sprouts on the list. So she's just breaking barriers left and right with Brussels sprouts because our two most popular answers are, the chicken and the eggs, and we get that all the time. But our most surprising answer that we've gotten is honestly mustard. I never guessed mustard, but for a
That's true.
lot,
That's
but
a
for
good
a
one
lot of the
too.
bodybuilders, I mean, because it has zero in calories, zero in fat, they love to, just douse their chicken and douse anything that they have in mustard. And I always say that, if you have to do that, you might want to reevaluate your life if you're putting mustard on chicken just to make it taste better. But I mean, that's one of the things that really, really surprised me. But here's another story to make you know that I'm from the Midwest. So when I was a kid, I had those parents that would say, like, I'll give you $1 if you finish your entire plate or whatever. So I had Brussels sprouts. I had lettuce. I had, I had lettuce, I had cottage cheese. I would just douse them entirely in ketchup so that when I ate them, I would taste, mainly the ketchup, and I wouldn't be able to taste the Brussels sprouts. And that's probably the most Midwestern thing I've ever done. Whenever I say that, people goes, "Oh yeah, that's such a Midwestern type of thing." So hey, I did what I had to do in order to get that money. So, but that's how. But now, I don't eat. I don't like any of those things still. But so I really just have probably milk. I'd say because I love that. But now, what is one thing that you would change about the sport of bodybuilding if you had the all-knowing power to do so?
I would want to find a way to make it less about the politics
Mhm.
and who you know and how big your social media page is and who
Yes.
you're sponsored by.
Yes.
That would be how I'd want to change it.
Oh my god, I cannot thank you enough for that because we've heard so many stories. It hasn't been brought up that much, but the first two guests I said that, and then no one has said that since because a lot of people don't realize some of these judges go based on kind of like what your social media presence is because they want to represent the brand of bodybuilding better. So let's say you have like 2 million followers as opposed to the girl that has like 5,000 that just walks on stage next to you. They might be more inclined to have that just because they want to spread awareness because then they make a post like, oh my god, bodybuilding's so great, I won this show, so then more people reach it. So yeah, I totally, and the politics too that we hear of that. But the problem with that is that, I mean, that's like in every sport. Like I couldn't tell you how many times I wanted to punch an umpire who was giving me some bad calls when I was on the mound pitching. So it's always, about human error too. That it's just so frustrating. But yeah, I always say in an ideal world it would never be able to pull off. But if you could have all the competitors just like stand in a line and have like a computer just like scan their body and decide what was the most proportionate and what was the most muscular, that would never, happen, of course. But that would probably be the one way that they could really fix everything. So what is one thing that out of all the followers that you have on Instagram that they would be most surprised to know about you if they met you in person?
It would probably be that I don't like to do legs. I hate leg day.
It's a
I
shame,
am
everyone.
not a
Jeez.
fan.
Oh God! All right. Well, I mean, I guess yeah. When you're just genetically blessed, I mean, I guess you don't have to worry about it as much. But I mean, she still does legs, everyone. So don't go on and just say like, oh, she skips leg day or whatever. No, that's not true.
No, like once a week because my coach makes me.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, what is the last TV show that you binge watched?
Oh, it was Tidy Up.
Never heard of that. What's that about?
It's this cute little Asian lady who comes to people's homes and helps them clean like all of their spaces. So it's not like a hoarder's, but it's just her way of helping them get their lives back on track through cleaning their house.
That sounds definitely interesting. I mean, yeah, those shows. I mean, my parents watch those all the time, so believe me. I mean, I've walked in on them watching that show plenty of times. But now, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
My favorite TV show of all time is a tie between Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones.
Yep. Yeah.
I can't decide.
Yeah. So how do you, if you were to have written the last season of Game of Thrones, how would you want it to go down?
Ooh, I mean, I would want to see Dany and Jon together for sure, and I want them to like take over Westeros and make it really awesome.
So you want incest, basically?
I guess so.
Yeah. No, I mean, and for me, I think it would be cool, but I know that they probably won't do it if the White Walkers won, and then the very last shot is like the kings, the Night King sitting on the throne, the throne seat, the throne, sitting on the throne. If I could see the Night King sitting on the throne, yeah, that would be really cool because I know
that'd be insane too.
Well, they have a lot of twists in it too, so it's not out of the reach of possibility, but it's just one of those things that, I mean, would be very, very nice. But now, what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Movie? Ooh, movie. I really like Disney. So I think any classic Disney movie,
What's your favorite Disney movie?
Sleeping Beauty.
Ooh, see, that's not an answer that we get a lot. We usually get like The Lion King or we get Beauty and the Beast. But yeah, Sleeping Beauty, that is a good one for two. I mean, all of my guy friends, close your ears, but my guilty pleasure movie, Princess Bride.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I'll never admit it in public, but it's one of those movies that, I mean, I've seen a lot of times, and I know about a quarter of the lines I can quote verbatim when it comes on. It's just one of those movies where you're flicking through TV and all of a sudden you see it's on. You're like, okay, now I gotta stop what I'm doing and watch it. So I mean, yeah, that's definitely up there for me. But again, all my guy friends, I'll never admit that in person. So just you hear it on this show and this show only. But now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh, I would tell her to stay away from drinking and just keep with the healthy, positive attitude that you can do anything. You just have to be willing to work hard.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things. So now for our last question of the questionnaire, what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Oh, I don't know if it's fashion, but I think it's just comfort. Like my favorite thing is being able to wear leggings and feel comfortable in your clothes, but still look good. Like I like my clothes tight, but I love gym apparel and I love cute gym apparel. And I think my least favorite, oh, my boyfriend's going to watch this, but my least favorite trend is tacky camo.
She's giving you a little
Tacky
suggestion
camo.
to her boyfriend out there. She's giving you a little suggestion there, a little wink, wink, nod, nod. Yeah. No, yeah. Camel can be all right when it's used properly. I'll say that. Yeah, 100%. So now we're done with the questionnaire. So now I always love to ask our guests before we wrap things up. So for our first question, what is your next competition? Do you have a date in mind? Do you have a time in mind? Or is it one of those things where you're just kind of laying low and just, like you said, getting bigger and, just putting on that weight? What is your current process like right now?
So I'm really excited because this is going to be my first year at Nationals. My next show is this July in Vegas, and we are going to go compete for my pro card, my first attempt.
That is awesome. And what are you excited? Are you going to do any gambling when you're in Vegas?
I've never gambled, so I don't know. I'm more of like a dress up and go out and eat kind of person. So there might be some gambling, but there's mostly going to be like, get this spray tan off me, get me in a nice dress, and let's go out and have fun because I need tacos.
So, I mean, we talked about many of the negative things of living in Minnesota, and there are quite a few, but one of the positives is because there are so many Native American reservations out here that gambling is legal, or I mean, you can gamble when you're 18. That's the age when you can gamble. So, I mean, a lot of people, instead of going out and getting their first drinks like they do in other countries where you turn 18, you go out and gamble, and I live within 5 miles of 3 casinos. Just say how many that there are in Minnesota. So, I gamble a little bit, I guess you could say. I mean, I've won a big chunk of money, I should say, gambling. I mean, I've gotten very, very lucky, but yeah, gambling is just one of those things, and I've never gone to Vegas, but, I've always wanted to go, so that's definitely one of the things that I want to do. But now, I mean, if there's one misconception that you would love to bust about women that are muscular, women bodybuilders, that you think the general public has, what would you say is probably the biggest one?
I would say that we're intimidating. We're not intimidating. I'm like the nicest person you'll ever meet. And if I look intimidating, it's because I'm kind of just focused on, if I'm training a client, like where I'm going to go next, or if I'm training myself, I'm like just spacing out. But I hear that a lot with my blue hair and my muscles, that I'm intimidating. But just come say hi to me and I'll be really nice.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I found. The bodybuilders, men and women, are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So I always, I love to just preach that on the podcast because they're just so nice and they're willing to help you out, but you have to also know that, like, so this happened in college. One of my friends was doing a bench press, and a guy came up to him and tried to talk to him mid-bench press for advice. And I told him, I was like, okay, you got to wait until he's done with his set at least. Like, you can't just go up to him when he's benching and be like, oh, hey, what do I do for this or whatever. But my friend was at least nice to him, and he at least, was struggling with the bench, and he told him, like, mid-bench, he's like, wait until I'm done. But then, yeah. So it's one of those things that you definitely need to know. But yeah, bodybuilders are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. But now, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Oh man, I got to give a shout out to my team, Iron Bodies and Minds, my coach, Courtney, who's been there every step of the way. And she's so excited. She's probably more excited than I am about the competition. And then, of course, my boyfriend, his name's Eric, and he's been with me from the beginning of this journey. So we are now in the journey to pro, and he's been there every step of the way, and I want to give a shout out to him.
How do you think that experience was like for him? I mean, going from having a girlfriend that didn't have a lot of muscles to going to a girlfriend that had a lot of muscles, how has he adapted to that just realizing, that, like, hey, she's really strong now.
Well, what's awesome is, I mean, we're a new relationship, so he loves the muscles, but what's fun for him now is he's going to go through his first show. So I've got a lot of this experience, and he's real excited for his show. So it's fun playing with those, with that experience, because I've already done it. I'm not as like bright-eyed, like, oh my God, this is going to be so fun. It's all new, because I know what's going to happen, but he's still very much positive and excited for it. So it's helping me become positive about it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say you need to have that partner in crime with you, or you need to have someone that you can work out with or go through with. It makes everything so much easier. Believe me, in college I tried to do it all by myself. And I mean, like, I made friends with some of the people that, were really muscular in there, but it's like I always like to train alone. I still train alone just because I'm one of those people where, I mean, I like to just be, it's like my me time. But yeah, if you can just have someone to motivate and support, it makes all the difference in the world. And again, you guys, Stephanie, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast. I mean, it was a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you nothing but the best in your show in July. And honestly, I think you're going to get your pro card. I mean, honestly, just having the blue hair too. I mean, that's what's going to make you stand out too. So I think you're going to do wonders. And again, you guys, go and check her out. I'll leave all the links to her stuff down below. I mean, she was a great guest. Really enjoyed having her on. And again, you guys, Stephanie Marsh Ballard, we cannot thank you enough. Go and give her a follow. Also, go check out Team Iron Bodies and Minds. I highly recommend going and checking them out as well. So again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.